All right, guys, we got a new patch. Just a heads up, I did watch Reyna's video. It's a very good video. He does go over the patch. It's not really like this video that I'm making now because what he does is talk about the development side of things and their goals and stuff. So if you're into that, it's definitely a good idea to watch that video. Also, I'll have that video linked for you guys. This is not the first time I'm reading the patch notes because I saw his video. Okay, I didn't like scrutinize everything, and he does kind of quickly go over a few things. So it's a little bit, but I will do my best to add context to what's happening. Overall, I'll give you guys the cliff notes. In my opinion, these are really good changes. They're really big changes, but I think they missed something. And unless they delete tape from the game, I believe Dooley will crush the meta. Okay, that's my prediction. I think Pig is going to be pretty good. I think Vanessa is going to be a bit weaker, and Vanessa was a bit stronger than Pig right now. And Dooley would, if not for a few things that I will point out, Dooley, if they remove tape, I think Dooley is going to still be the best. If they remove tape and nerf Omega Ray, I think Dooley is also going to be pretty balanced. But they definitely missed something on this one. Yeah. Okay, so let's go over it. So the ranking changes. Basically, the way that ranking worked, the way you gained ranking to go to like Legend and whatnot, it was based on wins and losses, not on completing the run. So what does that mean? So if you had a 10-0 run, okay, if you had a 10-0 run, it would give you a whole bunch of ranks. And if you had like a 10-win run, but it was on like day 15, so you lost like 6 times, you'd actually lose MMR for getting a 10-win run. Now, that sounds pretty crappy, and it was, and that's why they changed it. But it actually had even worse consequences because it wasn't actually based on finishing a run either. So what people would do is they would play like a burn core Dooley, which is almost impossible to lose, until like day 7, and then they would literally quit the run. So if you go 7-0 and then quit on a burn Dooley, your MMR will skyrocket. The very, very top people on the ladder were definitely doing this. So yeah, it's just like very backwards nature to the game, because the game is actually set up properly so that if you lose early, you can actually leverage into an end game strategy. Like the game actually has an amazing like comeback mechanic for to save a run, which is why you see so many of my runs saved, right? So the ranking system they had was absolutely tanking that good part of the game that they actually made. So now it's going to be in line. So the rating's going to be calculated based on the wins rather than the combat results. So that is a huge, huge win. For me, I don't care about ranking too much, but obviously a lot of people do. And this change is absolutely necessary because it is now in line with how the game works. All right. The RIT thing doesn't really matter. The loot level up rewards automatically go to your stash. That might be a little bit of getting used to because I'm not sure if it'll check for space. Like the gumballs don't check for space. They made bronze items better. They did actually. Bronze items are actually pretty good, but you get like higher tier items earlier. Like I saw some people say it's not a lot of changes. This is a really big change. Bronze items being better means you almost always want to level 2 on day 1 on every hero. And it also means that you can pivot into other strategies because you're constantly able to just get higher tier loot or higher tier items. And it also means that there's going to be more of a focus on economy because you'll actually need to be able to buy them. So you need some gold to be able to do that. They changed the balancing of a lot of items. Bronze, yep. Level up rewards will provide. Yeah, so if you picked the loot option or like the random item option, you'd get an extra experience. So now you don't. So leveling as a consequence is actually a little bit slower now. Not a huge amount, but you're going to have like half a level less on your runs. Dig site was counting as a merchant. Like if you had like the card, so when you go to a merchant, it buffs like the value of the leftmost. I didn't know it wasn't a merchant. The dig site was very much a merchant because you literally bought things before. Now it gives you an item for free, so after the redesign, it's debatably not a merchant, and with this change, they're basically saying it's not a merchant. Enchantment level ups now offer 1 enchantment altar and the artist instead of 3. So what does this mean? So now if you get to level 10 and level 19, you would choose one of 3 enchantment options. And these would be very significant, of course. You'd basically power level just for these options, really. And they're making it a little bit less powerful. So instead of choose of 3, you're going to have 1 option and the artist. The artist is random enchantment. Now, from my experience, the random enchantment has a higher chance to give you rare enchantments. It can also give you enchantments that are like quite unusual. So like, I don't know, I just had this random page up. But just to give you an example, so like agility boost, this is not like some item that you'd use, but some items have like very few enchantments. Like this one literally has 1. So the reason that this is significant, I haven't gone through the full list of items, but for sure there are items with very few enchantments that are also decent, so you're going to want to keep an eye out on those. Okay, not all items have like 10 enchants. Some items have like 1 or 2. So the items that have 1 or 2, it might actually be really significant of a change. The random enchantment can give you enchantments that cannot otherwise show up. So you might be thinking, it's like, hey, what does that mean? So like shiny, there's no shiny altar, which is like an extra multi. And there's like one other. What's the other one besides shiny? But yeah, there's basically a few that you can't otherwise get. Golden, that's right, golden. And again, I think the rarities for the random one are different than the rarities for the altar. Like in the last major patch cycle, I've seen 1 frozen altar. 1. Just 1. And the amount of frozen enchants I got from artists, I don't know, several. 5 to 10. And on an average run, I see way more altars than I see artists. So I think on average, we will actually see a little bit more freeze enchants. I also want to point out that this change overall, unless they messed with the scaling, this change is best on Dooley. Why? Because the core enchantments are across the board completely insane, and you keep the core for the whole run. Like if you enchant an item on another class, you might pivot to something else, you might not even use it. The chance that Dooley no longer uses his core later is very, very low. In some builds, it's impossible that you don't use the core. So it's low to impossible that you drop the item, and enchantments are absolutely overtuned on the core. If you're only offered 1, sometimes that 1 won't work very well. I think you'll actually pick the random enchantment a lot. And again, the random enchantment is best on Dooley. I think without any question, it's best on Dooley. Some graphic stuff. Okay. So Crane will no longer deal 0 damage when the number goes too high. Most freeze effects now target items of equal or smaller size. This is a really good change. And it does make large key items stronger. Not necessarily weapons, but like key items to a build. The bigger they are, the better they are. Because usually if your key item gets frozen, you are in bad shape. They're changing how enchantments work. So most toxic or fiery now maps to the item's base output, similar to shielding and restorative. So I did get a little bit of insight on this. They didn't post about it, so I'm not going to give you guys the full details. But some of the scaling here is actually appropriate. Okay, it's not like your 1,000 damage club gets 1,000 poison damage. No, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be like a ratio of it. Okay. Ron Pickle says 10% of the output. Yes, actually, maybe they did say that then. Okay, so yes, it'll map to roughly 10% of the output. So like your frozen club that does 1,000 damage will do like 100 poison or 100 fire damage baseline. which honestly I think is pretty good. If I had input on it, I'd probably say maybe 15% is where you'd want it. Like if a club does 100 poison, you'd probably just ignore the poison, honestly. But it's pretty good because right now, if you enchant the club with poison, it's like 8. It's actually a completely wasted enchant. So it'll now do something, and it won't be that overpowered. Overall, this is good. And yeah, they have lots of enchants in the game, so we can't expect them to change all the enchants all at once. Obviously, it's an ongoing process. I won't go through every single item change, just the really significant ones. Arbalest was pretty decent. It's still pretty decent. It was fairly unused because other stuff was more OP, and now it'll probably get a bit more use because they're nerfing the OP stuff. Like Barrel. I think last patch they should have just deleted Barrel from the game. I think it was so overpowered that people were specifically not playing weapon builds, except for Dooley, because Dooley can also scale along with Barrel. So they're nerfing the crap out of Barrel. I think it's good enough. So the cooldown's going to 5 instead of 4. And then it's when you use an adjacent non-weapon. And it scales similarly. So it scales a little bit more, but because it's slower, it's always going to be worse than the previous Barrel. Is that good enough? Honestly, I think it is. Yeah. Ballista. This is the one with like Giga ammo. I haven't used this item in a while, but again, that's because shield items are overpowered. You have to kind of see these in a bit of a different light. A lot of weapons gain a bit more damage. The cannon is losing damage. Oh no, it's gaining more damage at bronze, but less damage at diamond. And gold. I don't know about that one. Cannonade starting at 160 is actually really interesting. I think that might actually enable full weapon setups. I tried cannonade builds in the last patch. They were terrible. Unplayable. Captain's Wheel. So it used to be that if you had a large item but it was in your stash, it would still get the cooldown reduction. So they are changing that. Arguably that was a bug, but it's kind of hard to tell. Because if it was in your stash, you did still have the item. I don't know. They don't say it's a bug, so maybe it wasn't a bug. But yeah, they're making it so it works with only items on the board. You need a large item on the board to half its cooldown now, which is fair. Dagger. I think that's the dagger that earns money, so it does a little bit more damage. It does make the middle encounter on day 2 much stronger though, because his base damage is going from 12 to 30. So keep that in mind. Coral is the 4-second heal item that gains more heal when you buy Aquatic. So starting at 20 heal is actually really good. Like a bronze coral is 20 heal, even if you don't buy anything else. And because it's 4 seconds, that's 5 heal per second. 5 heal per second on day 1 is a lot. So this is kind of what I was talking about. Like you almost always want to level to 2 now on every hero. It's because they actually buffed most bronze items meaningfully. Like this is a meaningful buff for the first few days anyway. Coral armor, it's apparel. They did change a lot of typings for items. It's like a little. I don't think it's good enough, but yeah, it's okay. Cutlass damage is baseline higher. Good. Double barrel. Double barrel is currently one of the only items that actually has OP scaling, which is why you're starting to see a few builds with it. So they're nerfing the diamond version, and they're slightly buffing the bronze and silver. That's pretty good. Flagship starts at 50 damage. This is really big. Flagship is a good item. You can build around it. The main issue was that it just started at very low damage. It was hard to jump into the build, and because of barrel and turtle shell, all that crap, it was basically impossible. Like you literally automatically lose until you had the entire build. Grappling hook, whatever. Grenade, a little bit less scaling. Hand axe doesn't really matter. Honing steel is slightly buffed. This actually is a really good change for flagship because there's not that many tools anymore, and this is a good tool for the flagship. Ice pick, javelin, very, very small changes. Nesting doll is a toy. Pet rock is also a toy. They buffed bronze pet rock 10 crit. 10 crit early is quite good for activators. Diamonds also scale a little bit higher. Nice. Piranha actually has base crit now, so the double damage makes it worth using. I think it's still a pretty weak item, but, you know, it's better, at least, you know. If item's weak, buff it a little bit. Maybe they'll buff it some more next patch. Pufferfish is going to 8 seconds. This is a really big change because it was very easy to get it to 4 seconds. You needed like 1 decent feather or 2 small feathers and a diamond figurehead, but you could get a diamond figurehead by just using your level up upgrades on it. And if you got it to 4 seconds, it was easy to make it loop. Now, it is still pretty easy to get it to 6 seconds from 8 seconds, but to have it loop at 6 seconds is actually pretty hard. And if it's not looping, you actually are utilizing its cooldown, which means the build is not overpowered. So basically, Pufferfish is probably not overpowered anymore. It's still going to be very good. Rowboat is one of the things that you could use on Pufferfish. It's a little bit more usable now, lower cooldown and whatnot. Why not? Seaweed has the same baseline heal. I guess it's better at bronze. Sextant, Sharp Claws, Shovel. Look at that shovel buff. 50 damage at bronze, 75 at silver. Wow. Shovel might actually be a good enough starting item. It's a 10-second cooldown. So 7.5. They completely changed Rowboat. Yeah, so the cooldown is 8. And it's charging adjacent items. If you have 5 or more unique types, reduce the item cooldown by 50%. Oh, it doesn't haste at all. Okay. I thought it still hasted. It's charge adjacent. I guess you wouldn't use it in Pufferfish then. 5 or more unique types. I don't know how easy it is to do that. And then if you reduce the cooldown by 50%, it's a 4-second cooldown, charge adjacent by 3. Honestly, I think that's like a good pig item. With Vanessa, I'm not sure. We'll see. But it's good. It's like rowing. Row forward, right? It's like, yeah, it's pretty good thematically. All right. They are nerfing Silencer again. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Still use it. Still overpowered. Submarine silver is 50. Submarine is going to be one of the best weapons in the game for early game because they're nerfing shields also. So submarine was not really good enough before, but that's because it was a weapon and weapon builds kind of suck. So 50 damage, 50 shield, 3-second cooldown is very, very strong. Okay, like that's what. By 3, it is like it's almost 17 DPS, 17 shield per second. If it was 51, it's 17, right? So almost 17, which is extremely high. Submarine builds, log in. Torpedo actually works with like submarine and stuff, so that might be interesting. Trebuchet damage is going up at low tiers. You wouldn't even use a low tier trebuchet before, so that's good. Turtle shell now starts at gold tier. And it is also nerfed. I think this is pretty good. This is not a big nerf. I have seen in the right build a silver shell end up shielding for like over 10,000 with like a pearl helping. So now a gold shell will do that. Seems fine. Fix the bug where Deadly Wanted poster was doubling XP gain instead of crit chance. How are we supposed to know that's a bug? What? That sounded very much intentional. But okay, that's nerfed. Pygmalion's getting a lot of changes. The apparel type is actually quite pushed. And Pig has the most changes for it. So the chapeau is kind of like a giga buffer. It buffs your weapons, your heal items, and your shield items, and it gets multi for tool, apparel, property, weapon, or friend. And you might be thinking, that sounds like you have to have a lot of garbage on the board just to scale. Hold on a moment. Beast of Burden is getting a redesign. So it deals damage, it no longer scales damage, but when you buy an item, it gains that item's type. So I don't know how many types there are. It's maybe like 8 or something. But basically, you can make Beast of Burden have every type in the game, which will max scale the chapeau. So Beast with a hat is going to be really strong. Beast is 3 slots and hat is 2 slots. So it's half the board does good damage and has crazy scaling, and the other half is stuff that is good to be scaled, basically. I don't know what that is. Probably it's going to include a lot of cross-class items. Yeah, so that is pretty good. ATM has a tech type. Apparel has a belt has a apparel type. These are all significant. Okay, this is not like just funsies, because now Pig has power from different typings. Booby Trap is a toy, apparently. Brass Knuckles buff. Still pretty awful item, honestly. Caltrops is a toy. I had to clean up those Legos. Duct tape is a Pig item, apparently. The takeaway here is that duct tape is not really being changed. Like, duct tape shielding for a little bit less, obviously, is completely meaningless. It was still not very good if you didn't have shield scaling, and broken if you had shield scaling. It's still that, basically. It's still that. Flail damage slightly higher. Gonjo buff. This is actually pretty significant. I feel like silver Gonjo was good enough to use in the first few days, and now bronze Gonjo is the same as the old silver Gonjo. That's actually pretty significant. Gonjo silver starting item is 15, 15, 15. That's very significant. Very significant. If Dooley wasn't so busted, and we'll go over that in a second, I actually think that Pig might come out the best hero. But make no mistake, Dooley's going to be the best hero. Right. Gumball Machine, it was still not really usable at that. So Loop is coming back. They basically made Loop trigger at start of day, and it was kind of bad, but honestly, it wasn't like useless. It was just kind of bad because you usually just struggled for space a little bit too much. So it's going back to just passively buffing the sell value of your small items, which is obviously very strong. It makes buy-sell builds stronger, but I think they're not changing Cash Cannon, so Cash Cannon's still pretty mid. Beast the Burn is getting changed, so really it's just going to help Regal Blade a little bit and some econ strategies a little bit. So even though they're bringing it back to where it was like kind of OP, the game is kind of otherwise changed to a point where it's not going to be that significant. Fix the bug where turbo marbles would haste your opponent's items. Oh god, please, yes. Model ship. Adjacent items have +1 multicast instead of charge. Okay, so model ship is now an enabler. And there's a lot of toys. So, cool. Cool. Money tree, baseline of 40, is still very low. Typing changes. Silk scarf. Renamed from silk. Oh, I see. It's now apparel. Oh, interesting. Golden silk scarf value now works on items in stash. Okay. I think it buffed your small items value. Typing changes. Fix an issue where vending machine gold do not affect items in the stash. I have no idea what that means. So Vineyard is now not resetting when you face a player. This made it unplayable. I think Vineyard and Landscraper are both kind of weak, but at least it doesn't like ruin it. Yo-Yo's a toy. So Weight has a little bit higher scaling, and it now triggers on overheal instead of when at full. But the charge is going to 1 second instead of 2. They're not removing the skill of when you use a tool heal for like 5 or 10. So that will still be very good. The overheal is much easier to trigger than heal while at max health. I don't know if this is a nerf or a buff, to be honest with you guys. I don't know. I don't think it'll trigger off lifesteal. I skipped Boomerang. Oh, Boomerang. When you win a fight against a monster with this, gain a random loot item. Buy Boomerangs, guys. This is really, really good. You probably wouldn't use it for PvP, though. Yeah, weights is really tricky. I think overall it's a buff because the value of the increase is higher, which makes it stronger for like activating Atlatl and a few other things like that earlier. All right, Dooley. So why did I say Dooley is busted? There you go. They're buffing Armored Core. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the shield core with tape was almost as strong as barrel. So they're changing tape to have like 5 less shield or something. But bronze armored core is twice as strong. Yeah. Oh, it was a typo? Yeah, I think this had plus 20 shield yesterday. Wasn't it plus 20? It looks like it's actually nerfed at diamond. Maybe it won't be as bad, actually. But yeah, basically, if you go up against armored core in the first like 3 or 4 days, and they have tape, you just probably lose if you don't do poison damage. You might be thinking it's like, is it really that bad? Tape specifically is a crazy item because if you put it next to the core, it gets activated so quickly that no normal item could match its activation rate. It's impossible because it would activate every time the core activates plus another item, right? And if you're not familiar, one of the strongest skills for Dooley is titanium casing, which is 15 plus to your shield items when you use the core. And you might be thinking, man, that's pretty good. No. With titanium casing, you could get like 30,000 shield in a fight. Easy. Like you would beat the fatigue timer with that. So having tape unchanged in its mechanics and having armored core, even at plus 10, plus 20 is out of this world. But even at plus 10 is very significant. Again, this is in the world where they nerfed all the other shield items because shields are overpowered. Tape armored core is buffed quite a bit. They're nerfing combat core. This might be a little bit of an over nerf, but it was massively overperforming in the early parts of the game. And remember, they did say that you're going to be getting like silver items and gold items faster. If you went up against a dual core build with like a silver combat core, even like on day 2 or something, you just wouldn't win. So I think they're trying to get ahead of that one a little bit. They changed the values on some of the cores. Not that crazy. Day 1 duelies should be very, very strong, though. Like, the core dealing 30 damage on day 1 is very, very significant. Shield for 10 is very significant. Oh, the ignition core got nerfed. Oh, interesting. Burn Force sucks. You probably cannot cascade that. That is interesting. The weaponized core, this core has never been good as long as I've played this game, or Family and Friends. It's never been good. It's always been the worst. Actually, no, that's not true. Weaponized core had a lower cooldown than all the other cores for like a brief moment in time. But that was like Family and Friends. They quickly fixed that. So its scaling is actually quite a bit higher. So at bronze, it's plus 10 per use. Now, you might be wondering, it's like, well, that's overpowered. You just said how shield is overpowered. Yeah, but with weaponized core, it's different. Like, how should I say it? So you get tape on day 1 a lot of the time. Okay? So tape with a buffing core is like a diamond yo-yo. So if you have a shielding diamond yo-yo on day 1 with armored core, yeah, it's broken. If you had a diamond yo-yo with weaponized core on day 1, that is also broken. The difference is that you don't. You don't get a diamond yo-yo. There is no diamond yo-yo. But there is a diamond shielded yo-yo. So it's not that the core is overpowered, it's that tape is overpowered. So armored core is really insane because tape is overpowered. Weaponized core is probably good, but not insane because there's no tape equivalent for damage. That's it. They're nerfing the crap out of Alpha Ray. Good riddance. Alpha Ray was so strong that the correct way to play Dooley when you had a damaging core was to level Alpha Ray and to leave your core at bronze. Which is so stupid. It was also how they would basically scale and get their drill builds online. And there's no patch notes for drill, so drill is still in the game. So yeah, this is going to help mitigate drill a little bit. Arc Blaster, Giga nerfed. Honestly, I didn't like Arc Blaster that much, but obviously the bronze and silver versions were quite strong. Atomic Clock goes to 2 seconds instead of 1. I think this is going to kill the item. I actually don't think that the clock was that strong. I'll explain. So clock with 3 ammo, it didn't even matter the tier. If you had 3 ammo, it just wasn't that good most of the time, because if you increase the cooldown of an item that's not start of combat, like Fort, it actually doesn't affect its existing cooldown. So let's say they have like a 4-second weapon, and you clock and land on it. It doesn't delay that use. It delays the next use. And the reason why I think clock was not overpowered is because usually by the time you got lots of ammo on the clock with like monster loot, you would start facing builds that would literally just kill you in one weapon swing. And against builds that kill you in one weapon swing, the clock actually doesn't do anything. Like if you're going against like a double whammy that hits you for like 20,000, if you have a clock, it doesn't do anything. Okay? It'll make the cooldown longer, but only on the second use. There is no second use. So I think doubling its cooldown actually kills the item. I think it was good before. So maybe it didn't need to be nerfed, but this is a really bad nerf. This is a big nerf. Barbed wire, not really any different. Blast door. So blast doors is actually really overpowered. It was almost impossible to lose the weapon builds with blast doors. It just wasn't really talked about because with Dooley, it was just better to do more damage, and you had options to do that. And as overpowered as blast doors was, it still wasn't more overpowered than like barrel. But yeah, they're nerfing barrel, they're nerfing turtle shell, they're nerfing this, they're nerfing that. So blast doors actually does need to be nerfed then. So it's somewhat in line. I think blast doors will still be really, really good. Brick Buddy is still going to be crazy. Brick Buddy might be the strongest shielding item in the game now, because the scaling is unchanged. The CDR swing work with other cooldown. It would be irrelevant from the first use still. Bunker is now, you take less damage. So Reynad said in his video that this is like a new tech that they can do. The shield equal to damage was really buggy. It was not intuitive. So let's say you had like a skill that gave your shield items plus 100 shield. After you would take damage, the item would still go to 0. So like it was really it was really like spaghetti code on this one. So I'm glad that they changed it. So now with Bunker, you take 40% less damage if you just have it. Is this good enough? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Bunker sucks. Because like if you just like slot like a Brick Buddy and something, you're probably just better off. There might be some cases where it's good enough, but I think overall it's not worth using. Yeah. I feel like it's just better to use Brick Buddy and another item. You'll probably get similar defense, but you have more active items, which makes you less vulnerable to crowd control. Chris Army Knife, slight upgrade early, nerf late. You'll see a lot of that. Chrono Barrier, so they nerfed Fort, and I couldn't believe they didn't nerf Chrono Barrier. So now they're nerfing Chrono Barrier. So now it's non-tech items have cooldown increase, not just your opponent's stuff, which makes Chrono Barrier still insanely overpowered if you're playing largely tech items, and not that powerful at all if you're not playing tech items very much. The cores are all tech items, so these will never affect your cores. Cybersecurity looks pretty bad still. Dooley Scarf. I think Dooley's Scarf is kind of taking too big of a hit. Yeah, it's a little bit better at silver, but they're kind of nerfing freeze across the board. But maybe not. Maybe there's going to be lots of people with frozen cores from the random enchantment. Fiber Optics is back. It is actually my favorite Dooley item. This is a really big buff to Dooley. Fiber Optics is when you use your leftmost, charge your rightmost. It's a huge, huge power for Dooley. Oh, they're also bringing back boots for Pig. I quickly went over that. So you'll be able to cascade enchantments with boots, which is a really cool gameplay loop in my opinion. And another thing is, I didn't I didn't see it here, but Boots was bugged, which is why they had it out of the game. And if they're bringing Boots back, they're probably bringing back the hammer also. Yeah, the wrench and hammer. So really cool mechanics. I love those mechanics. They're kind of overpowered, but they're making upgrades less significant, so I think it'll be fine. Okay, Clarence. Cool LEDs goes to 5. First Aiden goes to 4. Armadillo goes to 8. Induction Aegis goes to 5. So a lot of these items were just too low cooldown. These changes overall are pretty significant to nerfing Dooley. Honestly, now that they actually like fixed the text, because apparently the text was wrong on the Dooley core changes, I feel like Dooley might not actually be that overpowered. But as long as the core enchantments aren't changed, Dooley's still probably the strongest hero. Just not by a colossal margin. But they probably should still remove tape. Pure Conditioner, small or medium only. I wonder if the core freeze is any. It might be. A lot of the time, there are a few more changes than the patch notes. Sometimes they're unintended, but yeah, they try to have some, decent size of patch notes. They don't go in like full details. And I think Reyna did mention that in his video. Like some of the cooldowns, like the Beast of Burden cooldown is also like a little bit lower. When they redesign an item fully, they often change a few other things about it, so just keep that in mind. Wallace. That's actually really good. Wallace might be pretty big. So they're nerfing a lot of items, but Wallace is still 6 seconds, and 6 seconds is now better than before, because most of these items are like slower. Shield 10 instead of 5, and it operates at silver at the new bronze. It's actually pretty significant. Welding helmet. A little bit bigger shields. There are a few... these are mostly like typing changes. The dragon type is going to be a rare one. So we have a new item, Dragon's Breath. Cooldown 8, burn 8 when using an adjacent item or dragon item, it gains burn. The only dragon item that I know is the Dragon Whelp, which is on the... I forget his name. He's the guy that has the crook with a bunch of friends. Yeah. So if you're playing like the Beast build, or if you're playing with the Chapeau, you're probably chasing dragons. just to get the thing. Dragon Claw. Zookeeper. Okay. Yeah, mostly just text stuff. Typing stuff. Skill changes. So Hardened Shield was silver. At silver, it's completely busted. And you could get this on day 2. Dooley could get Hardened Shield on day 2 from the Mushroom event. Which is obviously not okay. That is so not okay. Hardened Shield is still insane. An unsaid buff to Hardened Shield is because shields are overall weaker, more people will play weapons, which makes Hardened Shield stronger. Freeze when you shield. Waters of Infinity. Regen for each non-weapon. That's cool. A lot of regen. Nice changes. Oh, and the octopus monster should actually do some damage to you, but he's probably still like the easiest. Dual wield, yeah. It's the Mr. Moose skill. So I've only seen that like a couple times. But yeah, if you have exactly 2 weapons, your items have 50 crit. It's pretty good. Overall, the patches should be very good. It's going to be a very different feel to the game. I feel like Dooley is going to come out the winner unless his core enchantments are changed, and I don't think they are. I think they would have said that. Core enchantments and tape, I think, puts Dooley ahead. I think Pig gains a lot of ground, and I think Vanessa actually loses a little bit. So I think it's going to be Dooley number 1, Pig close second, and Vanessa a little bit of a distant third. Oh, and Crescendo, yeah, Crescendo is being nerfed. Crescendo nerf might actually be a little bit too big, because the best user of Crescendo was Dooley, and Dooley's item spamming feature is nerfed in general. So gold Crescendo is 3. If you're in a case where you have no crit skills at all, Crescendo is still insanely strong. But if you have like 30 crit from like other skills and items, you might not want to go crescendo, which is good. Which is good. That's how skills should work.